Dear friends, I wish to thank the Foundation San Patrignano and the President Carlo Bonomi, and also to thank everyone who worked for this extraordinary civil enterprise, which is San Patrignano, which has given a really great response of solidarity to young and people and to adult people, where the Italian state wasn't able to respond. I'm very happy for Confindustria to be the co-organizer of this event, and I wish to thank everyone who is going to speak today, starting from the personalities that are going to introduce the word: Jeffrey Sachs, Mario Monti, and John Scanlon. Everyone is a great participant, and for the roles that they carry out in research and third sector, in the financial world, in the world of enterprise. And I think there's going to be analysis and proposals of value today. Of course, I can't go into detail of such a complex agenda, as we're not only going to discuss our country and the most advanced societies, but the whole global situations in terms of the objectives of the planet indicated by the UN 2030 agenda and fostered by the European Union. I would like to share a consideration with a forward. If I had to answer to question as a president of Confindustria, I would share my optimism in how Italy will be able to face the strengthening of the objectives of sustainability that we have been entrusted with from the European Union in terms of reduction of emissions, in terms of supply chains which see us at the top of the European ranking for circular economy, recovery and reuse and recycle of final products in many sectors such as plastic and paper and oil and exhausted oil, especially thanks to the synergic contribution of enterprises organized by full supply chains from production to distribution to the end consumer. Italy has many great energetic groups, both public and private, that have become really important in setting their objectives for the long and for the short and long term. There are technologies that are very advanced and developed at the disposal of our enterprises, specialized competencies and positions that are very satisfactory in terms of international chains of development and international collaborations. And I can also share my optimism in terms of the digital transition. And I'm not only talking about the access to broadband, but also to the whole complex of innovation that the sector of digital automation puts at the disposal of the Italian supply chains for 4.0 industry, or a network of public and private services that in Italy is still lagging behind. I'm also thinking at the new standards that see Italian entrepreneurs enhancing their investment analysis by assessing the weight in their plans, especially in terms of capitals of risk and debt. So the challenge in terms of environment, digital technology and finance needs the right incentives to private enterprises and direct intervention. Confindustria has proposed since last September a roundtable to start a recovery and resilience plan for the country. Unfortunately, this has not happened yet. In 3 weeks, we will learn from the Gravi government how they intend to recover the lost time. The minister, Daniele Franco, said in the parliament a few days ago that there is a full awareness that without a turning point in authorization from the state and public administration, reaching in 5 years the EU objectives will be practically impossible. We need different procedures for infrastructure, for the plans necessary to close the waste cycle, for electrical recharger vehicles, for restructuring the real estate heritage, because this particular sector, together with the transport, are the two sectors in which the Italian strategy needs to do a containment of emissions that is less than 55% compared to a few years ago. So the Italian industry is here, just waits to understand. Another topic that worries me as an entrepreneur, as an Italian citizen, is social sustainability. On this, I am very worried, very, very worried. Our Italy has been living for 25 years as a prisoner of a vision that cannot change, and every exogenous crisis creates a loss in GDP, plans to recover it, stagnant productivity, and a per capita income that has gone back to that of 26 years ago. Now, the consequences of all this go on the weak part of our society, young people, women, and families at low income. And all the horizontal fractures have worsened. So, fractures between exposed enterprise and competition, with companies that are growing, that have more investment, more research compared to the turnover, more access to credit, more use of graduate people, more company welfare, more career possibilities compared to those that work for the domestic market and have growing difficulties on all those indicators. Sub-regional companies where the phenomenon of school dropout is very, very on the increase. We're talking about 20% of the demand of families that is reached, and young people have started abandoning those areas where criminal networks are taken up compared to other places in Italy, where there are still these phenomena, but not in such a strong way. So it's no longer a question of north and south. We're talking about the borders of the different Italian regions. And one of the most extreme manifestation is a continuous drop of our demography, which should be redressed in a few years before there are really, really negative consequences. So in Confindustria, we dedicated a chapter of our proposals that we delivered last week to the Conte government and which remained unheard. Of the 3 emergencies claimed by the head of state when he asked Mario Draghi to form the new government, pandemic, economy, and social problems, the social problem is the worst. More than 100,000 victims of COVID in Italy are a devastating figure, and some of them could have been avoided if the previous government wouldn't have made some huge mistakes. But it is also crazy that Italy has spent 6 years to create 850,000 jobs, and we lost more than half of that. And who lost those jobs? Young people, women, temporary contracts, and more absolute poverty is increasing. And a lot of people are not covered by the citizenship income, which is assigned on a basis that, on a ratio that is the same throughout Italy, without considering the differences between regions and metropolitan areas, because the different cost of goods and services must be taken into account. And I fear that those social fractures will require a revision, a general revision of the intervention of the state and general pillars of our living as a community. A modification of education, of what schools and universities give to our young people, and that do not make them ready for the demands of enterprises. And also trying to create a long life care model, which is necessary for a society that is becoming older and older and is requiring territorial medicine and early diagnosis. It's very important also to recreate our social security because we are completely unbalanced in favor of pensions. So the problem is to have measures that can maintain the most elderly cohorts in jobs and trying to raise the occupability of young people with social amortization and labor policies based on reoccupability, re-employment, and revise structurally the contributions, the pension contributions, and making those pensions grow as the years of activity increase with a balance that is inversely proportional to the young people in the state. So we need to really and completely review contribution and the check that has been voted by the parliament, a single check, has to be reviewed, and all these bonuses that have been set up for families and workers without a revision of IRPEF, without a reorganization of reductions for enterprises and families, without a reassessment of the tax system of our country, we will continue to have tens of thousands of benefits that will not go to the people who actually need them and are suffering the price of 25 years of wrong choices. So, my friends, do not be surprised that as Confindustria, we would like that social sustainability compromised by our country, the low participation to the job markets, the break of the social lift, the integration of women, of young people, of families could provoke in politics and institutions the same sense of permanent emergencies that sees us committed to fighting COVID. And we don't think it's actually the case yet. Policies for school, work, health care, tax and contribution and pension continue to be considered separately, each one with their own flags, past to be defended, even though data show that this approach has failed and we need to really overcome it as soon as possible. So for all these reasons and for the emergency of social sustainability in Italy, I really expect some interesting proposals from today's debate. There are two ways to consider history. Our historical background. Hegel used to say that there are two things we learn from history and actually nothing. Other philosophers would say the opposite way, that we must learn from history without making further mistakes. So I agree with this other philosopher, with Santayana, and I think that for our society and for the society in which we operate, it is not too much to hope that Italy can actually do this. Thank you and have a nice morning of work.